Takt Performance Indicators, paper 135 by Celine, Ola and Signe. There is a general perception among researchers that the practice of Takt varies within each project. In the Norwegian construction industry, Veidekke is among few contractors which is familiar with Takt. Veidekke has applied Takt since 2010, and one recent Takt project is the residential construction project, Ulvenparken in Oslo. This project includes 342 apartments divided on two buildings, namely Skrine and Prisma. Planning of the whole project started in summer 2016, and handover of the first apartments is expected autumn 2021. The Takt planning began in July 2018, where the Takt itself started late December 2019. If everything goes as planned, the Takt will finish in March 2021. The Takt at Ulvenparken is limited to interior activities. In total, this involves 10 different trades. The Takt planning team represented 6 trades: carpentering, plumbing, ventilation, electricity, kitchen installation, and painting. The planning was structured after 6 steps for developing a Takt plan, and 5 adjustment mechanisms for making the plan more flexible. All necessary activities were systemized into 16 suitable wagons. In advance of this paper, it is carried out a preliminary case study on Ulvenparken. This case study investigated how Ulvenparken considered practicing Takt, mapped possible challenges during the Takt planning and the Takt plan execution, as well as how to handle these challenges. Some challenges concerning the Takt plan execution has been documented in previous studies. Still, a complete set of general challenges is missing. Here, general challenges mean obstacles to achieve the objectives of Takt, rather than obstacles linked to a specific type of projects, such as residential construction, hospitals, etc. To help Takt planning and Takt control projects identify and reduce the number of obstacles, the following research questions have been studied. What general challenges are expected during the Takt plan execution, and which Takt performance indicators can identify these challenges? Both studies have followed the IMRAD structure. To solve the research questions, the following method has been used. A literature review was performed to understand Takt and its evolution. A case study was preferable to obtain data from an ongoing Takt project. A case-specific document study was carried out with the purpose of collecting information from Ulvenparken and create an overview of their Takt. The interviews were also case-specific, meaning that the interviewees were working at Ulvenparken. The aim was to strengthen the validity of the study. In total, 13 interviews was performed, 5 in conjunction with the preliminary study and 8 performed during the primary case study. Measurements were also an important data gathering method, especially for the second research question, to figure out which performance indicators that would identify the general challenges. A list of 5 questions were developed. The questions were: what challenges do we want to measure? Where do we want to measure? How are we going to measure? When do we want to measure? Who shall be measured and who shall measure? Question 1 was answered within the preliminary study. Out of 32 identified challenges, 16 were considered relevant in the primary study. They were all connected to the 6 steps for developing a Takt plan and the 5 adjustment mechanisms for making the Takt plan more flexible. Where we wanted to measure was restricted by the project progress and similarities in the amount of work on each floor. Accordingly, the measurement area was defined to the third and the fourth floor in Unit 1 of Skrina. Each of these two floors consisted of 3 zones, and the measurements were carried out zone by zone. For question 3, the last planar system method appeared as most favorable. At Ulvenparken, 7 performance indicators were then selected, which is the following: PPC, percent plan completed, perfect handovers, overtime, returns, additional choices, man-hours, and staffing. To measure the indicators, timesheets and a custom-made handover protocol was used. This figure shows the questions within the protocol. At Ulvenparken, it was desirable to identify PPC through the entire protocol. Results was recorded by the ratio executed above number of planned wagons for each week. The contribution of this indicator was to achieve a steady workflow. A perfect handover was registered if 2 requirements in the protocol were fulfilled, namely, the zone was cleaned, and 2, the tasks in the zone were 100% completed. If a perfect handover was registered, the craftsman in the following wagon could work independently. Overtime meant registering hours beyond the normal weekly working hours, like for example hours worked during the weekends. This indicator was a part of the handover protocol, and it was used to adjust the staffing. Returns indicated whether a trade had to return to a previous zone to complete missing work. When registered in the protocol, it could explain why different trades worked in the same area at the same time. Additional choices were apartment buyers' supplemental choices to the standard apartments. The indicator to compare the number of performed additional choices in a zone against the planned number. If the numbers didn't correlate, a corrected registration or return was required. Indicator 6 man-hours was measured through a comparison of estimated work hours and actual work hours taken from the timesheets for each wagon. The estimated work hours were per square meter and indicated if a steady on-site workflow was achieved. At last, indicator 7, staffing, was compared in the same way as man-hours. A staffing estimate was calculated by dividing the estimated man-hours on a defined working day of 7.5 hours. If the estimated staffing correlated with the actual staffing, the craftsman could work independently and regularly. For the fourth question, it was sufficient to measure the indicators once a week in 12 weeks. The defined 5-day takt time made it natural for the measurements to be taken at the end of each takt week. What day a takt week ended on was influenced by public holidays. To make the research work bearable, only the first 6 wagons out of 16 were studied. This first picture shows a clip art of the takt plan, where the analysis period of 12 weeks is marked in blue. The black framing shows which of the 6 wagons that have been measured when. Each wagon was supposed to be measured 6 times with a total of 36 handovers. When considering who should perform the measurement, it was important to prevent subjective measurements. Therefore, a collaborative system were preferable. For the handover protocol, a signature was added, while regularly follow-ups were conducted for the timesheets. In production, takt appear as the required rate of production to meet the supply demand for that project. With this definition, takt planning can be looked at as a method for work structuring. The method has a rigid and predetermined structure with the intention of creating a stable environment for the last planar system. Out of the last planar system's 2 initial purposes, takt planning is supposed to improve workflow in production. A takt plan depends on flexibility to be feasible. This can be obtained by introducing adjustment mechanisms such as hybrid wagons, directional construction process, buffers, standardization, and quality assurance. Hybrid wagons consist of several trades that will work simultaneously in one zone. Directional construction process means that all wagons are moving through the apartments in the same direction. Buffers can be found within the aspects time, capacity, space, and plan, and should all be able to handle unforeseen events without significantly affecting the planned production. Standardization means creating and implementing standards to ensure a consistent quality. Quality assurance are planned and systematic activities undertaken to assure that a good or a service meets the quality requirements. For a project to succeed with a Takt plan, follow-ups and adjustment of the plan are required during the project's development. The method used to record the necessary changes is called Takt control. In the following tables, Research Question 1 and Research Question 2 are answered. The green tabs are relevant for Research Question 1, while the red tab are connected to Research Question 2. In total, 16 general challenges were identified, connected to the 4 relevant Takt plan components and the 5 adjustment mechanisms. By example, the challenge illness can affect the Takt plan component 4, balance the workflow. Through the indicator staffing, illness can be measured. Information about staffing is again collected through timesheets. In total, 9 challenges were connected to the 4 relevant Takt plan components. The last 7 challenges were connected to the 5 adjustment mechanisms. The handover protocol was introduced from week 4 at Ulvenparken. The black framing in the table shows which handover protocols that were supposed to be filled out during the analysis period of 12 weeks. To explain the development in the table, follow-ups were conducted on-site to support the crew leaders from week 4. Eventually, the crew leaders were left more to themselves, and the number of handover protocols was reduced. This is shown by all the red fields in the table. Follow-ups were then resumed from week 16 with a positive effect, as more fields were marked green. Since only 2 handover protocols were filled out during the analysis period, no results were recorded for indicator 1, PPC, 2, perfect handover, 4 returns, nor 5 additional choices. On the other hand, all timesheets were delivered after each Takt week. This has consequently produced some results for indicator 3, overtime, 6 man-hours, and 7 staffing. The trend presented in the last table confirms that follow-ups and personal support is crucial to achieve a successful production control. Since Takt at Ulvenparken was introduced at an early stage in the planning process, along with the last planner system, the Takt plan could still be achieved. Confirmed by the interviewees, indicator 2, 3, 4, and 5 can be registered in a handover protocol. Concerning indicators 6 and 7, the interviews admitted that the submission of timesheets for the Takt control required less work than the protocols. For them, the timesheets represented a time-efficient way of measuring man-hours and staffing. Last but not least, we have PPC, which is a far more comprehensive indicator. Measuring PPC through the handover protocol was not sufficient enough, and for the future it may be more efficient to measure PPC more manually. Based on the results from the preliminary study, a total of 16 general challenges for the execution phase were linked to 4 Takt plan components, and 5 adjustment mechanisms. To measure these challenges, 7 performance indicators were selected, namely PPC, perfect handoffs, overtime, returns, additional choices, man-hours, and staffing. The measurement of the indicators was collected through timesheets and a handover protocol. The lesson learned from this study is that follow-ups and personal support is crucial to achieve a successful production control in a Takt planning and Takt control project. Thanks.